This is a disclaimer. This episode may contain graphic descriptions of crime and criminal activity. It may not be suitable for listeners under the age of 18 or for those who may find the descriptions as disturbing. Listeners' discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to another episode of Crime KE podcast. My good name is still Ajuma and I am very grateful that you took the time to listen in today. In this week's episode, we get into the murders of Waris Daud, Nuseiba Dahir, and Amina Abdirashad. I hope I'm pronouncing their names correctly. In the various sources that I used for research, their names have been interchanged frequently. So in this episode, I will just refer to them by their first names to avoid any confusion. Now, this case is famously referred to as the Isli 3, and it all happened in October last year. I remember there were so many theories at the time that this story came out. Now, before I begin this story, I want to give another disclaimer. The details of this story are very graphic. Even I myself could not stomach them. So if you feel like it may affect you, please, this is the time to stop listening. I would rather you don't listen than you listen to something that traumatizes you. And now, without further ado, let us get into today's episode. And please stick around until the end of this episode to find out how you can support this podcast. Waris, Amina, and Nuseiba lived in an apartment in the Isli area of Nairobi. Waris was in her 30s and she was the mother of 12-year-old Nuseiba. They lived with Amina, who was Waris's niece, and she was 23 years old, studying hospitality at the Nairobi Institute of Business Studies, better known as NIBS. Waris's husband was based outside Kenya, so most of her time was spent in Kenya with her daughter and her niece in their home in Isli. Let me take you to Monday, October 21st, 2024. The three of them spent time at home, but Waris kept complaining of skin irritation. When it got to 8 p.m. that night and the irritation had not gotten better, she decided to go and get it checked out. So she left their apartment and told Amina and Nuseiba that she was going to a facility at the Business Bay Square Mall, better known as the BBS Mall, which is located in Isli. About 1 hour later, Waris texted them and told them that she was done and she was heading back home. They expected her back home in no time because the mall is not that far from their apartment. Now, 2 whole hours passed after that and Waris had not gotten home yet, so the two girls got worried. And their fears were even heightened by the fact that they were trying to call her and she was not picking up. Now, eventually, they decided to follow her to the mall and find out if she was okay. CCTV footage from the apartment shows Nuseiba and Amina getting into the elevator at around 12:53 a.m. on Tuesday, October 22nd. While in the elevator, they can be heard having a conversation, and even though most of what is said in the conversation is not clear, they can be heard mentioning the name Hashim. According to the police, by this time Waris had already been abducted, and the abductor used her phone to text Amina and Nuseiba posing as Waris and asking them to go and pick her up. 3 minutes after they are seen in the elevator, another CCTV footage shows them pacing around on the pavement outside their apartment. At this time, a saloon car can be seen stopping close to the pavement and the two girls move closer to the car. They engage in a short conversation with the driver before they get into the vehicle and they are driven away. And that is the last footage of Nuseiba and Amina alive. At around 4:40 a.m. that morning, that same vehicle that picked Amina and Nuseiba up was captured by CCTV footage along Mombao Road in Parklands, dropping a body before making a U-turn and returning to where it came from. Now, from what I saw in the CCTV footage, the vehicle does not actually come into frame, but you can see its lights. You can see it stops for a few seconds and then that is when it is believed that the body is dumped before it makes a turn. A few hours later, the body is discovered. Locals reported a badly mutilated, half-naked body of a woman found on the side of the road, and the police moved in to investigate. The body had many stab wounds on the back, chest, hands, and even on the head. Police say that from their initial assessment, she had been murdered elsewhere and just brought to Mombao Road to be dumped. Police took the body to the city mortuary, where her family identified her as 23-year-old Amina Abdirashad. As this was happening, all the way in Machakos County, police from the Athi River sub-county were receiving reports of a female body found in a bushy area of Machakos. According to the Athi River sub-county police commander, they found the body with deep cuts on the face, eyes gouged out, and the neck was almost severed. There were also suspicions that she had been sexually assaulted. This body was quickly identified as Waris Daud, as she was the only one still missing after Nuseiba's body was found in Kamukunji, opposite Bahati Primary School. Now, Waris was abducted in Eastleigh, Nairobi, only to be found more than 50 kilometers away from Nairobi in Machakos County. Police actually handed over this case to the DCI teams working on homicide cases, and they're the ones who processed the scene where Waris was found, after which they also took her body to the Nairobi City Mortuary for an autopsy. Waris's 12-year-old daughter was found in Kamukunji early that morning, where locals say that they had had commotion the previous night and woke up to a body. At the scene, detectives found a knife, which was taken in as the murder weapon, and they also saw tire marks which they believed were from the vehicle used to drop Nuseiba's body there. The three women were all taken to City Mortuary, where the chief government pathologist conducted an autopsy on all of them, and the results were devastating to their families. After 4 hours of conducting the postmortem, Dr. Johansen Oduor reported that all three of them had endured torture at the hands of their killers. The autopsy showed that Waris had been severely beaten, her hands had been chopped off, and her neck had been almost severed. The autopsy determined that it was the injury to her throat that actually killed her. Dr. Oduor said that Amina was killed by one of the stab wounds that went right through her heart. Nuseiba was determined to have died of suffocation, and her postmortem report showed that she may also have been sexually assaulted. Now, the people of Eastleigh were angered by this news, and rightfully so. They even took to the streets to protest the deaths of the three women and to demand justice for their brutal deaths. The police relied on CCTV footage from different places and forensic data from the victims and the suspect. At first, 2 people were taken into custody, and one of them was a woman who came forward saying that she had been abducted together with the 3 women, but she managed to get away. The woman actually told police that she was with the 3 victims on the day that they were abducted, and they were put in a room together. According to the woman, their abductors demanded money from their families, and she was only released after her family sent close to 1 million shillings to the abductors through an Ethiopian bank account. She said that the 3 were murdered because they were unable to give the ransom to the abductors. The second person who was arrested was described as an accomplice to the main suspect. Police determined, according to the investigation, that he received money from the families of the victims, and even on one occasion, he drove the suspect to Langata Cemetery. Now, I want you to remember this part of the story because I will explain it further later. Police say that he was also found to have used one of the victims' SIM cards, and he was in constant communication with their main suspect in this case. After following their movements, police recovered the vehicle seen in CCTV footage picking up Amina and Nuseiba near Wakulima Market in Nairobi. CCTV in that area captured the car being dropped off and the driver just disappearing, never to be seen again. Now, at this point, all the trails that the detectives had followed were leading them to one man, Hashim Dagadne, also known as Hashim Khalif. Hashim was an Ethiopian citizen living in Isli at the time. The investigation revealed that he had built a relationship with the three women and their family while he was working as a taxi driver in Isli. Forensic evidence showed that all the three women had interacted with him in one way or another before they were abducted. You remember on the CCTV footage of Amina and Nuseiba in the elevator, they were speaking about him, meaning he was not a total stranger to both of them. Police started tracking his movements and staying on his trail because they needed him to answer the murder cases of these three women. At this time, Hashim, who is actually an ex-police officer from Ethiopia, at this time you would expect him to be in hiding, but no, he was actually implicated in another murder that would have actually occurred while police were looking for him for the murders of these three women. It's complicated, I know. A woman identified as Deka Abdinur went missing on 24th October 2024. The next time Deka was seen alive was on CCTV footage taken inside a supermarket, after which she was seen getting into an apartment in Isli. Deka would never get out of that apartment alive. A few moments after she went in, Hashim was captured entering the apartment too. Now, 2 days after that, Hashim is seen leaving the apartment carrying 2 polythene bags which were recovered at Langata Cemetery together with Deka's remains and some of the things that she had purchased in the supermarket. Her body, when it was recovered at Langata Cemetery, had been badly mutilated. It had been boiled and some of the flesh removed. In fact, some of her remains were not even recovered because police suspected that when they were left at the cemetery, wild animals from the nearby national park ate them. Police had collected evidence that implicated Hashim in her murder, one being that he had used her phone to contact her family and demand for ransom. So now police were looking for him for at least 4 murder cases. On 3rd November of 2024, police finally tracked Hashim Dagane to a lodging in Isli where they believed he had been hiding. According to reports, when he was caught, he did not try to resist the arrest. Police say that from his reaction, it was clear that he had not anticipated that he would actually be caught. Police seized his phones, computers, and they even realized that he had 2 IDs, one with his real name and another one with a fake name. In his phone, police found a lot of evidence that they intended to use against him in court. They found that on the night before Waris was found in Machakos County, he had paid money to a petrol station in Athi River before he went to Machakos. They also found very incriminating searches on his browser. This guy was Googling things like how to dispose a body and how long to boil flesh. He had even bookmarked a lot of serial killer profiles and crime documentaries. I remember when the story came out, many people came out with theories of him being a serial killer for hire, which I don't know if that is a thing, but I wouldn't even be surprised if it was a thing because there are very few things that surprise me in crime reporting. Hashim was brought to court on 4 murder charges. According to his charge sheet, he committed the 4 murders in a span of 9 days from October 21st to 30th of October. He is currently being held at the Industrial Area Remand Prison as his case continues. He pleaded not guilty to the murders and he even asked to be released on bail, which was denied for obvious reasons. I mean, if it can be proven that he committed these murders, then he is a danger to society and should probably not be interacting with people like that. According to reports, Hashim fled Ethiopia after murdering his wife and 3 children and dissolving their bodies in acid, which is something that he apparently tried to do with Deka because in the apartment that she was allegedly killed, one neighbor said that he had had an acidic smell at the time that she was murdered. A warrant for his arrest is still out in Ethiopia for murdering his family. I want to end this episode with reflections from Amina's brother. He told the media that his sister was very excited to start school at NIBS, and the least that can be done is deliver justice in her murder, and I couldn't agree more. We have come to the end of this episode. That is all I have for you so far on this very disturbing case. I will be following up on the case and providing an update as soon as it is available, and normally I will do that on our social media platforms. Our last episode for this season will be out next week on Thursday, so don't forget to listen. You can support Crime KE podcast by sharing this episode with your friends so that we can get a larger community to listen to these cases. On TikTok and Instagram, we are at crime.ke. On Facebook, you can find me at Ajuma Millicent. I have tagged the podcast contact information and social media pages on the show notes of this episode so that it is easier for you to reach out if you have any feedback on this episode or the podcast in general. We also have a WhatsApp number, which I have put in the show notes of this episode. You can send in voice notes, suggest cases, and give feedback. And now, with all that said and done, don't forget to give this podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify and catch the next episode of Crime KE podcast on Thursday next week. But until then, stay safe and remember, it is crime with a K.